on, guys? AJ here with the Breaking Point Show. We're doing our second episode since my 2 year hiatus, moving out to Arizona, kind of hitting the reset button in life. And one thing I want to bring up is it keeps coming in mind while I'm dealing with this is, I've always heard that the death of your ego is the last step to true success. And, I'd have to say that's true, right? Like, I went from being this person that, not that I did everything perfect. I was just so relentless. Like I wouldn't stop if I wanted something, right? And it always worked for me, right? And not saying it was an easy task, right? But like I would keep going and keep going. There's always a different angle. There was always something else I could do. It was never over until it was over. And for the first time, I actually had to deal with not being able to push past the hurdles, and like I had to accept that I failed, right? And so during these like last 2 years, like I've taken the time to really have like difficult conversations with myself, um, which I believe everybody should do, right? We'll get into that a little bit with mindfulness, but I had to fail to be ready for the next step. And the reason why I say it's the last step to really be successful, you build all these attributes along your path to success, right? And like you're gonna have some mild success. Like I had success. I've accomplished quite a bit. I have 3 degrees. I retired at 24. Bought my first vacation house at 24. Bought my first house at 21. At 21 years old, I had saved 3 dozen serious casualties in Afghanistan. That's more than one amputation, one limb amputated, or more than one gunshot wound. We hunted terrorists. I have awards from other countries. I've done all these things that I'm like, I'm ready to be successful. But my ego had to die. Like I thought I was invincible, and nobody is, right? Everybody's success story, like every single person has a part where they failed. You have to fail. You have to be ready. You have to be ready to, you have to know that failure is an option, right? Otherwise, you're not going to be ready for true success. When you get handed the opportunity of a lifetime, you're not ready because you think you can't fail. Like failure teaches us some of the best lessons, but you have to have those attributes. You have to grind towards it, right? And what happens when you fail and your ego dies defines whether you're gonna be successful or not. I lost my way for a year, where I chased all the wrong things, which we're gonna get into today. Today's episode is about quality over quantity and why I learned that lesson and what it means to me. And honestly, this is like the fourth time I've recorded this this episode because it's so important. And making this realization like kind of really changed everything for me because um, I realized there's like aspects of my life I was accepting less, and it was preventing me from being a complete person, right? And I was lying to myself about this confidence I had. And yes, I was confident in a lot of areas of my life, but when I was chasing quantity, specifically with women, for me, right? Um, I was devaluing myself, and what I realized is a lot of people are doing that, right? And I was sitting here telling myself I'm confident. Oh, look, I could pull all these girls, and like, look, I had as good of a run as anybody, right? Arguably better than most. I'm not saying like I'm the reason the term fuckboy got invented, but I was definitely fuckboying out during that time, and I was probably part of the focus group. So, like, when I'm sitting here saying like this, like, I know there's a bunch of people shaking their heads, like, oh no, I'm never getting married. I said the same stuff, right? And all it does is leave you empty. And you're lying to yourself if you think that needing different women in your bed every night is making you like confident or the man. No, you're lying to yourself. Just like I was lying to myself for years. I constantly needed my cup refilled, right? So how could I possibly be confident if I needed that much reassurance, right? And now I see people doing this, and it's like it's crazy to me, but like I did it, right? So like I have some empathy for it, but you wish you could convince them to stop, and hopefully this episode helps people. But the point being is like this was so important that I kept trying to film it. It kept coming out angry. I'm like, man, why is this coming angry? And like, there's some stuff I had to get over to be able to get this message across appropriately because it's not an angry message, right? There's people I've cared about that have put quantity over quality, and I can't understand why. But you know, it's not my place to understand, right? All we can do is focus on what we do and how we get better from it. Um, and I think everything in my life now revolves around quality, which is why I filmed this 4 times, right? I want to put out a quality episode. It's not about how many episodes I put out, it's about the quality of the episodes I put out. So, like this realization has changed kind of everything for me. And now every conversation I have, every interaction, every friend, every business associate, anything I do in life, like I'm looking for quality over quantity, right? And I just won't partake if it's not quality. It's as easy as that. Nobody can make you do it, right? So like if you choose quality, like you're gonna try, like people will try to pull you back in your old ways, and like you gotta pump the brakes and tell them no, right? Like, hey, yeah, you set your boundaries and you keep doing it, right? And everything has changed since I realized it. So it's a really important episode. Um, and at the end of the day, it comes down to confidence. Because realistically, until you like truly find like true confidence, which like I was confident in so many aspects of my life besides this one, you know, and like I said, I was lying to myself. So you could have told me I wasn't confident with women before. Like, no, it wasn't that. I wasn't confident in my value to a woman, right? And I kept wondering why I ended up in these like relationships where I wasn't being treated appropriately, where I would put more effort in, and the whole thing is like I didn't believe I deserved quality because I was devaluing myself so much by chasing quantity, right? So subconsciously, like consciously, I'm saying, tell myself I deserve the world, but subconsciously, like I knew I was devaluing myself. I just hadn't admitted it to myself. So of course, how am I going to end up with a quality partner if I don't believe that I deserve a quality partner subconsciously, right? And we don't tap into our subconscious often, but our subconscious is the most primal version of ourselves, right? It is the version of ourselves that's the most honest with us. It's completely instinctual. It sees everything, right? And we run from it. And a lot of people are at conflict with themselves because they battle their own subconscious, right? Instead of having difficult conversations. Like we all have insecurities, we all have flaws, we all have failures, but you can fix them. But it's like being an addict. You can't fix it until you admit to it. You don't need to admit to it to the world. It's nobody's business. But admit to yourself, because if you're lying to yourself about it, you can't fix it, right? Which is why I get on the podcast and I talk to you guys about it, right? Because I want to show everyone that like you can own your flaws. Like this was a huge flaw for me that cost me some like amazing relationships. Like I was with this girl Kaylee a couple of years ago, and I was just not ready for her, right? Like we talked about how like if you're still posting selfies looking for attention, you shouldn't be. She didn't do any of this. She's gorgeous, wildly respectful for not only me but herself, right? I used to watch her shut dudes down in a bar. She wasn't even nice about it. I never cared when she went out, trusted her fully, and I wasn't ready for that quality of a woman because I was still devaluing myself chasing quantity, right? And I owe her a giant apology for that because she deserved better. And I should have been better for her, or I should have not not worn out her patience, right? But we live and we learn, and now like I can truly say like I am ready for somebody of quality, and I'm not going to accept anything less, right? But how many lessons did I have to learn prior to that? How many heartbreaks? How many, you know, how many bad choices? How much did I devalue myself before I got to this point? And what would have happened if I would just be honest with myself earlier? But we can't change it. But moving forward, I plan that everything that I'm involved with to be quality, right? And the other thing I realized too is I get around certain people sometimes, and when I care a lot, and I typically don't challenge the people I care about. I'll actually begin to devalue myself to like not make them feel insecure, right? Like if they're like, you think you're smarter than me, I'll dumb down how I talk, right? Oh, you think you're better than me, I'll stop talking about my accomplishments. And I kept wondering why these girls would look at me like, only a couple. why they look at me like I was this like lesser man at the end of it, because I was being. Because instead, in those moments, I needed to build them up, not bring myself down. Right. So that was another issue I was doing. And like, I build up a wall between me and who I'm supposed to be. And I wouldn't feel like a complete person in the relationship, which leads to insecurities, which leads to things that like I wasn't used to. Right. I probably would have walked away from a lot of them significantly before I did if I never cut myself off from the version of myself of who I truly am. So that's something I plan to fix moving forward, right? Like if you are a confident individual, you almost have the responsibility to help bring other people up, especially if they're your partner, right? Never lower yourself down to make them feel better, right? Help build them up, right? Like dig your feet in. You know, you can do it in a positive way. It doesn't have to be this aggressive thing, but like don't do what I did. Don't like every time they bring up insecurity, I would just stop doing that. Right. And I thought I was caring for them. And maybe I was, but I wasn't caring for myself. Right. And when you don't care for yourself, like you're gonna find yourself battling and at odds, and it's you're not gonna feel like yourself, right? And you should always be a complete version of yourself. And everybody deserves to be confident. um, you know, and honestly, like I have to give my sister credit for my confidence. Right. When I was in Afghanistan, my sister's a psychologist. Um, when I was in Afghanistan, I called her and like I was experiencing this like for the first time in my life, I couldn't keep my thoughts straight. You know, like there's a lot going on. You're at war, right? I have all these people's lives in my hand. I have to choose whether I shoot, this person or this person, and that's a lot to be on a 21-year-old. And so I call her. Well, actually, I call my dad, and he's like, "Call your sister." And so I call her, and I'm like, "Crystal, like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with," and she's like, "You have anxiety." I'm like, "Bruh, like." I'm not Paris Hilton's dog. Like, I'm not going to take Xanax. She's like, no, dude, like, there's levels to it. Like, but you're experiencing anxiety. And she taught me a technique called mindfulness, right? And that's where, when you're having intrusive thoughts, like, you take control of your own brain, right? And it's helped me significantly. It's arguably helped build me to be who I am. And I actually thanked her for it a couple of weeks ago. But whenever you have these intrusive thoughts, you pick something peaceful, an image that doesn't invoke any other thoughts. So whenever you can't control your thoughts, you sit there, you sit in silence, and you bring your brain back to that peaceful moment. And it's challenging at first, but the more you practice it, like anything else, the better you get at it. So now, whenever like intrusive thoughts come in, I can bring myself back to this place, and I learn to control my thoughts and ultimately control my anxiety, and which then led to me being able to look at situations logically, which when a medic should always look at things logically, right? Um, and all the negative thoughts that come with war and like what we do over there and stuff, like I was able to get a handle of because of this, right? And it's literally thanks to her. She didn't even remember we had that conversation, right? But it's so meaningful to me, right? And like that's thing, what we say to people, what we do for people, like we don't know the impact it's going to have on them, right? Which is why everything I'm trying to do now, I realize is like when my base is selfless, when my motivation is selfless to help people, like the whole point of this podcast is to like put out my experiences so hopefully people don't have to learn like, you know, learn the hard way like I did. Right. I've been posting on my fitness stuff lately solely to show people like, hey, it's not as challenging as everybody makes it out to be, right? These are simple ways to do it and sharing knowledge, trying to better everybody. Whenever my base is selfless, things go right for me. Whenever my base starts going to be selfish, and there's certain people that brought that out of me, and it's not their fault, I allowed them to bring that out of me, right? Which I'm working on making sure that doesn't happen again. Um, Everything would start going south, and I couldn't understand why, right? Well, like for me and my strengths, like I need to be selfless, and I do my best work when I am, right? Um, so ultimately, that helped build my confidence, right? And I've worked on it step by step. And this last lesson, I feel like, has truly completed me. Like I feel like the most complete version of myself of like the quality over quantity. Having to admit to myself, and trust me, there's plenty of people in my family, friends that have known me forever, ex-girlfriends, that are going to be floored by the fact that I said like I was wrong for chasing quantity. I should have never done that. right? I should have never devalued myself. I should have focused on quality, right? I should have never allowed people to have access to me that didn't deserve that access. Um, and I think a lot of issues in my life probably would not have sprouted up. I definitely know there's some great women that I've dated that I wouldn't have had that issue if I would have solved this beforehand. Maybe we'd be married, right? Going back to Kaylee, like you're talking about a girl, very, very beautiful, no social media presence, wildly respectful to me, super caring, ultimately selfless, like everything you want in life. And like I fucked it up because of my hubris and like not being honest with myself. Um, and it's a mistake that pops up in my head frequently, especially with dealing with women I've dealt with after her. Is like, man, you guys just literally sell you guys chase like you chase worthless attention and you give your body to these worthless men and like you're just devaluing yourself over and over again. It's like, man, like something that's so valuable to me, like you just devalued, and for what? For a lesser man, right? And it's like, and then I had to be honest with myself, like, you know what, I've done that for lesser women, right? But I guess I'm used to like old school days. Like I grew up with some really respectful sisters, and they had a lot of self respect for themselves, and so I didn't watch them do those kind of things. So it's always wild for me to see women do it. But I understand we're in a different time. I'm just explaining my experience, right? But yeah, you have to chase quality, and to get to that point of quality, you have to be confident because like you don't truly know what you deserve, the quality you deserve, until you've had those hard conversations with yourself, right? Like take the time, like admit your flaws, fix them. Don't sit here and run from it. Like we all run from our insecurities because we feel like if we admit that we have this flaw, now it's true and it's something we've been running from, and by running from it, we're not able to fix it. And so now this is a monkey on your back for the rest of your life, or until something like wild happens to you that forces you to change it. But there's steps you could take prior to that. And if you're gonna have, it's better for you to have a hard conversation with yourself than anybody else. Like if people bring up my flaws now, it's like, trust me, I'd say way worse than myself. There's nothing you say to offend me, right? I don't care what other people think. The people that care about you aren't going to sit there and beat you down. They may give you constructive criticism. Anybody that's going to sit there and beat you down doesn't give a shit about you. So why do you give a shit about them? Why do we care ultimately what anybody else is doing, anyways? Right? I think there's a huge problem with humanity right now. Is we're competing with the Joneses, but like everybody's lying on social media. That's why I get out here and own my flaws, because it's like I'm going to lead from the front. If nobody's perfect, we all have A and B and C and D and F slides, but everybody only wants to display the A slides, right? And so now we're competing, we're lying to everyone else and lying to ourselves to compete with these people who are lying to everybody and lying to themselves, right? Versus just being the most complete version of ourselves. Like social media is terrible for this, right? Like I promise you, all these people that are acting like they're living luxurious lives, like they're probably really sad. That's why they're constantly looking to get their cup refilled by everybody. You know, it's just a wicked world, and it's one unfortunately we all have to navigate now. But you have a choice to be on the hamster wheel or not. Like I'm choosing not to be, right? I'm choosing not to compare myself to anybody besides who I was in the mirror yesterday, because that's the only person you can be, and the only person's actions you can control are your own, right? So like focus on fixing yourself and being honest with yourself. And like I just admitted something that I've been lying to myself for the better part of 20 years. Like that was not an easy conversation to have. I'm significantly happier that I've had it, and everything has changed so much since I've focused on like everything being about quality, right? So don't be afraid to have those conversations with yourself. If you have to sleep with the TV on to drown out your own thoughts, like it's time for you to sit alone and have some difficult conversations with yourself, right? You should be able to be alone and be happy. You should be able to sit in a silent room and have productive conversations with yourself. And if your conversations continuously go negative, like that's what you need to work on. You shouldn't beat yourself up, right? You should admit that you should admit what's wrong, build yourself up a little bit, and then come up with a plan to fix it. Because you're the only one that can. That's why it's self confidence. You can't look to somebody else for that confidence, right? you have to have those challenging conversations with yourself. No one else is going to have a conversation to make you more productive, right? Everyone, even if they want have your best interest in mind, it's in our nature to protect people's feelings, so they're going to beat around the bush, right? Only you can be truly honest because only you know the actual truth. Stop running from it. Embrace it. Become the most confident version of yourself, so you could get the quality in your life that you deserve. um, when I moved out here and I was overcoming, I handled failing for the first time in my life terribly. Like the worst way to handle it. I spent a year just being promiscuous, out of the bars, having all these like meaningless relationships and conversations, and being in a place where everyone's already running from their problems because it made me feel better about it. So I didn't address myself because I was just like, well, I'm doing better than these guys. So, you know, but that was the wrong answer. And I wasted over a year running from my problems instead of addressing it. Right. And, that was a lesson I had to learn. So be it. Right. We all will deal with this. Each and every single one of us are going to run from our problems at some point. But it's the biggest question, are you going to stop running? Right? I chose to stop running. I chose to face it head on, deal with the pain that came with it, deal with all the hard conversations, the beating myself up. It was challenging, but I came out a more complete person, and I'm happy I did it. But yeah, being promiscuous is not confident. You're afraid. You're literally afraid that you're not as valuable as you're telling yourself you are. Well, guess what? You're not. Because you're sitting here devaluing yourself by giving yourself to everybody else. If you want to be as valuable as you believe you are, you do what everyone else doesn't do. You make those sacrifices. You don't chase meaningless attention, meaningless flings. And trust me, like I said, like there's so many people in my life that are going to be just absolutely floored that I'm saying this. Right? Because this is like completely out of character for me. But once again, I was lying to myself for the better part of 20 years. Right? And I'm done lying to myself. Like I deserve better. I deserve to surround myself with quality people and quality women. And I don't need the numbers. Like it doesn't make me feel good anymore. I tell more women no than I ever do yes. Right? And that in itself makes me feel good. So stop giving yourself up. Right? And if your body's all you have to offer, you're never going to get what you deserve, especially if you're out here devaluing your body, right? Like, to a successful man, like a woman that has self-confidence or self-respect and didn't go give her body, like men drive to be successful to have what no one else can have. And I've never been a successful woman, so I can't speak on it. Why would I want a woman that anybody can have? Right? Everything else in my life, I've sacrificed so much, and she won't even sacrifice that to have self-respect for herself. How could she respect me if she was going to be self-respect? Right? Which, once again, that's why Kaylee stands out so much to me. She actually has self-respect, which is why when all these other women are giving me excuses on why they don't, like I could go back to someone that did, right? And I'm glad I had that experience. I'm sad that I wasn't ready for it and I mishandled it. Right. And my hubris led me to believe that, I'd find women that had those traits. I'm going to be honest with you. Like it's rare. It's rare to find a woman that respects her body anymore. I mean, it's cool to do amateur porn now. Like your family knows you do amateur porn. That's weird to me. Right. like that, like, we only get one of our bodies. Like it's so valuable. Like, why are you throwing it away over meaningless stuff? Like, people you're never going to remember. Like, it's not even worth it at the end of it. Like, I've never walked away from a one-night stand and been like, that was amazing. Normally I go take an insanely hot shower and, like, scrub my body with bleach. But, and that should have been the sign. And ultimately what leads to is, like, a rise in imposter syndrome. People walk around acting like they're confident and they're not. Right? If you're out of the bar every weekend, or you need partying, or you need that attention from social media, like you're not a complete person. You need to work on yourself. Like stop walking around like that. Every dude that slides in your DMs or every girl that hits you up, like it's copy and paste from they did 100 times. You're just the one that's desperate enough to respond. So you feel good about being that desperate, right? About fulfilling, about giving away yourself to somebody who literally is just going to go do whatever with whoever, right? Like we got to stop lying to ourselves. Like it's not cool. It's not fun. It's not worth it. And ultimately, all we're doing is devaluing ourselves for our future partner who should be everything to us. Um, and those people with imposter syndrome, like they get wildly uncomfortable around confident people. Like it's wild. It's surprising to me how many people will go out of their way to attempt to like break me down or try to prove I'm not who I am. It's like, why do you even care about this? The fact that you're going out your way is because it's uncomfortable for you to be around me. Because when you're around me, like I'm walking around truly confident. I'm not perfect to any extent. I'm not walking around like I'm God's gift to earth. I'm walking around like I know who I am and I'm a complete person. And you're sitting here telling everybody that you're that in one way or another. And then you're next to the real thing. All of a sudden you're uncomfortable. Now you need to try to break that person down instead of like using them as a beacon of where you should be aiming towards. Never try to bring someone down to your level. Try to elevate to theirs, right? That's how we get better, right? Like once again, I should have elevated those partners to my level and built them up instead of lowering myself to theirs whenever they had insecurities. I failed them and I failed myself because of it, right? We gotta stop doing it. And self discipline, man, like it's the biggest form of self love, right? Like take care of your body, take care of yourself, make the good choices. Like I no longer get FOMO when I see everybody out at the bars on the weekend. Like I'm actually proud of my choices to stay in and work on some productive, work on the podcast, work on my house, spend time with my kids, um, do something, anything productive. And trust me, like I go to bed feeling better. I wake up the next morning feeling better. And I'm not walking around regretting what I did the night before, and I'm not saying don't have your fun, but make it worth it, right? Like I don't go out in my hometown anymore. If I want to go out, I leave. I go to Vegas, Phoenix, California. I go up to Utah, go see my little brother and snowboard or whatever the case is. Like everything that I'm doing from now on is quality. I will not go have a worthless night at the bar instead of having instead of having quality night at home being productive. If I want to go party, I'm going to go make it quality. I'm going to make it something to remember. It's going to be an experience. Right? I encourage everybody to do this. And like, I'm telling you, it changes everything. Right? Like, it changes how you view yourself. It changes how you feel. Right? You're not competing with everyone else. So now all you got to do is focus on you being better than who you were yesterday. And that's something you can control. You can't control other people or other people's actions, but you can control yourself. Right? And focusing on quality and like surrounding myself with quality is like truly, truly giving me that ability. Right? And I'm so much happier. I'm so much more complete, which is why I could get on here and confidently talk to you guys about my flaws and how I overcame them and sit here and express the importance of learning this lesson and how I wish I did before and the things that I threw away because I didn't have this lesson. Right? It's so important. And like, just try it. Try it for a week. If something's not making you better, like one, I don't do conversations about people anymore. If people try to talk to me about drama, I shut it down. Right? Like, if you want to talk to me about ideas, talk to me about stuff that's happening in the world that's not revolved around drama. I don't care what the Kardashians are doing. I don't care what, like, let's talk about real stuff. Like, let's have educated conversations. Let's better ourselves. You should walk away from every conversation slightly better or helping someone else be slightly better. And talking about people just doesn't do that, right? Try it for a week. See how you feel at the end of it. Choose quality. Stay away from people with imposter syndrome. You'll be able to spot them. They're going to be the ones trying to break you down, and they're going to sit there and act like they're your friends or they love you or, like if they're tearing you down, walk away. It's that simple. You don't have to end the friendship. Walk away from the conversation. Right? Hey, you know what? I'm not interested in this conversation. I'm gonna go to bed or I'm gonna do this. Right? You have that power. Like nobody gets to strap you to a chair and force you to listen to their bullshit. Right? Start making the hard choices. They don't care about hurting your feelings as they're trying to break you down. Don't care about hurting their feelings by walking away from a conversation where they're just attacking you and disguising it as love. Right? Love, people that love you are going to come with problems and solutions. not just sit here and point out your problems. And more than likely, they can't come up with solutions because they themselves are not being honest with themselves, right? I can't tell you guys how important this is. You know, I hope all of you guys choose to take this challenge and choose quality in every single thing you do, quality in what you eat, quality in your workouts, quality in your conversations, quality in your friends, quality in, you know, the TV shows you watch, quality in just whatever you're doing. Choose quality. Ask yourself if it's making you better, and spend a week doing it, right? And if you have a good experience, come back and leave it in the comment section, right? Inspire somebody else to do it, right? If you do the exact opposite of what I'm telling you to do and it makes you better, then awesome. 'Cause all I want is for everyone to be better by this. Like, I hope if one person can walk away from listening to these podcasts and feel better about themselves or fix an issue in their life, I'm satisfied, I'm happy, right? Because like our only value on this world is the legacy we leave behind. What did we do to make this place better than when we got here, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. You know, if that's one person at a time, great. It's more than most people are doing, right? So try to make the world a better place. Make yourself better. Choose the quality you deserve. Have the tough conversation with yourself and find true confidence. Stop running from it, right? It's not that challenging, and you're going to feel significantly better at the end of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You know, like I said, we filmed it 4 times. Feel good about this one. I feel like we got the point across. But if you like what we're talking about, hit the subscribe button. Next week, we're talking about value, how value requires sacrifice. We're going to get into much more positive conversations, but I hope at least one person walks away from this and figures out a way to be more confident. If you guys like it, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you guys next week.